Hello, 7th and 8th grade art students. Welcome to lesson 3 entitled Light Source and Wayne Thiebaud. In this lesson, we are going to be learning about light source and how to create value to make our drawings look more realistic and three-dimensional. And we're also going to be focusing on our featured artist, Wayne Thiebaud, who's the inspiration. You are going to be creating dessert drawings inspired by the artist Wayne Thiebaud. So the objectives of this lesson are to be able to recognize characteristics of the pop art movement. Wayne Thiebaud is a pop artist, just like in our previous lesson we studied Roy Lichtenstein, who is also part of the pop art movement. So we're sort of continuing with that pop art theme, but we're studying a different artist. So objectives are to be able to recognize characteristics of the pop art movement, also to be able to recognize key elements to the artist Wayne Thiebaud, who is a dessert painter, a painter of everyday objects. He also does lipsticks and paint cans and some other things, but he's most famous for his dessert paintings, hence our dessert drawings for this project. We aren't going to be painting them. We're going to be using, you'll have the option of either using chalk pastel or oil pastel. I'll get more to the materials here in just a minute. So, objectives, pop art movement, characteristics of Wayne Thiebaud. We're going to be learning about the difference between two-dimensional art versus three-dimensional art, and learning how to create value to make our 2D drawings look more three-dimensional, sort of with that illusion that the desserts are three-dimensional by applying value. And then, of course, we're going to be focusing on the purpose of a light source to help us determine where our values land inside that object. So please check out the Google slide for all of the step-by-step instructions, some additional videos on 2D and 3D, also a video on Wayne Thiebaud. So make sure you're watching that. Make sure always when you're checking out Google Slides that you're putting it in present mode so that you can easily click on those videos and they'll play for you. Also in the Google slide, you'll find the grading criteria so you know exactly what I'm looking for. All right, so this is gonna be a couple of videos. In video 1 here in just a moment, we're gonna start off by doing just a practice worksheet. So we're gonna be first practicing creating a value scale with pencil and then applying those values to the circle there to make it look more like a sphere. Then you're gonna have a second opportunity to practice creating a value scale with either chalk or oil pastel. So to materials, I'll be listing those under the assignment or inside the assignment. Materials, so you are going to need a 8.5 by 10 or 11, 8.5 by 11 sheet of construction paper, black, has to be black. You're gonna need a pencil and eraser. Then again, you have the option of either using chalk pastels, oil pastels, which are a really oil version of a crayon. If you don't have access to either one of those, again, please contact me. I'm happy to set aside materials for you to pick up here at school, or if all else fails, you can use crayon. It just won't turn out, the colors won't be as vibrant. So crayon is a last resort. Also, the printout, if you're having trouble accessing a printer, again, contact me. I'm happy to set aside a worksheet for you to pick up as well. So follow along as we practice making value first. Our worksheet, again, this worksheet for you to print out will be located under the assignment for lesson 3. All right, I hope you enjoyed learning about light source, creating value, and our featured artist, Wayne Thiebaud, as we create dessert drawings for our lesson 3 art project. Print off the Creating Value worksheet located under assignment 3. You will need a pencil, an eraser, and then your choice of either chalk pastels or oil pastels to complete this worksheet. You're going to begin this worksheet using pencil. So you're going to create your first value scale using pencil. It doesn't matter which end of the scale you choose to start. Whichever end, though, you're starting on, your first box is going to be your darkest value. So you're pressing really hard with your pencil to create your darkest value. You want to be consistent in the direction of your pencil strokes. So I've chosen to fill in my darkest value going vertically with my pencil strokes going vertical. So you just want to be consistent in each box, then making all your pencil strokes go vertical. However, you can choose horizontal or diagonal. You're just wanting to be consistent. It's going to appear more neat if you keep your pencil strokes all going in the same direction. Obviously, you can see there at the edges, I'm going horizontal just to neatly fill in the remaining edges, but the majority of the box is filled in vertical. All right, so I'm creating my darkest value first. When creating value with pencil, we always work from dark to light. So if you're using colored pencil, chalk, oil pastel, we're always going dark to light. When you create value using paint, it's the opposite. You actually work light to dark, but we're using pencils, so we're creating our darkest value first, pressing very firmly, filling in the box, keeping a nice, consistent, even value throughout that box. Now I'm moving on to my next box, and I'm releasing on the pressure of my pencil just a little bit because I want the next box just to be a little bit lighter than my first box. It's always easier to go back in and add more and overlap and make things darker. So always start a little bit light and then you can make it darker. It's really hard if you go in pressing too hard. It's really more difficult to lighten up your value with the racing, and then it's tricky to get the consistent value within the box. So always press a little bit lighter than needed, and then you can always continue to overlap and make it darker as needed. You can see here now I'm using my finger to blend just to help those values become more consistent. I'm erasing a little bit on the edge. This is 20 points, I believe. Oh, I have to look. Now I have to look at the grading criteria. This worksheet is worth 20, maybe 25 points of your overall grade. So neatness is important. As you work, you're evaluating or you're assessing your work and making sure that none of the boxes are the same value. You're wanting to create that gradual transition from dark to light. So do your best work. Now that you've completed your value scale, creating 6 different values, a gradual transition from dark to light, you're going to apply those values to the circle. And our hopes is to make it look like a sphere. So by adding the value, we're making our shape look like a form that is 3-dimensional. Again, we are starting with our darkest value. So you're referencing that already shaded image, that shaded sphere image on your worksheet as your guide, and you're mimicking those values. So you're starting with the darkest value. So you're looking where the shadow is on the sphere, and you're pressing firmly, creating that same shape of darkness. Notice that my pencil stroke is following the curvature of the circle. In doing that, that is also enhancing the illusion that the sphere is 3D. If you were to make your lines all vertical or all horizontal, it would flatten the shape and it wouldn't look 3-dimensional. So my strokes are following the curvature of the circle to make it look more rounded and more 3-dimensional. So you're starting with your darkest shadow, and then you're thinking about your light source, because that's the key here. By knowing where our light source is, that's going to determine where our lightest value is, where our highlight is. So I've put my light source in the corner there. You can choose where you want your light source. It can be on either side, but by knowing where your light source is, then we know where the highlight is, and then we're gradually getting lighter as we move towards that highlight. After you've completed the value on the sphere and you've maybe even erased a little to enhance that highlight, then you're coloring in the shadow, the cast shadow, which is on the ground surface. All right, now that you've completed practicing creating value, a value scale with pencil and applying that value to your circle, now you're going to practice with either oil pastels or chalk pastels. Whichever you choose is fine. In this example, I've chosen oil pastels. Again, you can choose any color that you would prefer. I am going to use blue. And again, I'm starting with my darkest value first. Whether you choose chalk pastels, oil pastels, or you're using crayon, consider blending colors to make your color look darker. So I'm using my dark blue, but then I'm going to overlap and blend some purple into it just to try and make that dark blue even darker. And then I'm going to experiment with colors as I move down my value scale, trying to create that gradual transition from dark to light. Once you've completed the value scale with chalk or oil pastel, you're going to apply, again, those values to the circle to transform it into a sphere, just like you did with the pencil. Starting with your darkest value and your shadow first, and then gradually working toward the highlight. Again, making sure that your strokes are following the curvature of the circle to make it look more three-dimensional.